All right. Good afternoon. Our Secretary General is on his way back to New York as we speak after attending yesterday's outreach session of the G7 summit in Canada. As we mentioned, he took part in a discussion on energy security with a focus on diversification, technology, and investment to ensure access and affordability in a changing world. This session included G7 leaders as well as other leaders invited by the G7 to attend the outreach session. The session was closed, but I can tell you that the Secretary General emphasized that energy security is no longer about barrels and pipelines. It is about renewable energies and united action to support accessibility, to support affordability, and to support supercharging sustainable development. Throughout the day, the Secretary General had informal meetings with leaders attending the summit and discussed a broad range of topics, including, as you can imagine, the current situation in the broader Middle East. Turning to the situation in Gaza in particular, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that amid ongoing hostilities across the Gaza Strip, attacks have continued, reportedly killing and injuring scores of people and damaging vital infrastructure. Yesterday in Khan Yunis, our partners report that medical teams at the Nasser Medical Complex had to clear the maternity ward to make space for the injured and turned those rooms into emergency operating spaces. Many of the injured people had to undergo life-saving amputations. This follows the incident we mentioned yesterday where people waiting for aid were killed or injured. Our partners working on health in Gaza tell us that every day scores of patients across the Gaza Strip desperately need blood transfusions. But as blood stocks are very low, our partners are relying on daily connections to meet the increasing demand. In addition to shortage of medical stocks, partners working on health report that the lack of food, supplies for emergency workers is causing many of them to faint, especially when they deal with mass casualty incidents. This week in Khan Yunis, inpatient admissions at field hospitals have increased threefold, largely due to access challenges at the Nasser Medical Complex in the same area. You will recall that that facility borders a displacement area imposed by the Israeli authorities. Despite the challenges, partners have established a new field hospital in Khan Yunis, which will provide medical care to thousands of displaced families at the Al-Mawasi camp. Our partners report that the internet blackout we mentioned yesterday, which is affecting Deir al-Balah, Khan Yunis, and Rafah, has continued. Today, Israeli authorities denied repair missions, depriving people in need and humanitarian workers of vital communications and, of course, disrupting our aid operations. And you had asked yesterday for some additional information on the severe fuel shortage that Gaza is facing. Our colleagues from OCHA warn that stocks have dwindled to dangerously low levels, jeopardizing critical lifelines for the population after more than 100 days with no new fuel supplies entering Gaza Strip. Humanitarian operations have been pushed to the brink of collapse. It is urgent that fuel is made available to run the backup generators needed to sustain a minimum level of life-sustaining activities. Our partners at the Palestinian Red Crescent report that in view of the fuel shortages, it is currently operating fewer than 24 out of the remaining 58 ambulances it has in its fleet throughout the Gaza Strip. Today, Israeli authorities did approve a request to collect fuel from the Tahir fuel station in Rafah. That mission is still ongoing, but we'll have more information once it's completed. OCHA reminds us that the last successful mission to retrieve fuel from inside Gaza was completed 1 month ago, and that's because Israeli authorities have repeatedly denied attempts for us to organize missions to retrieve that fuel. We continue to call for immediate, unimpeded humanitarian access to our fuel stocks, to aid to our aid supplies, and to people in need. It's critical that Israeli authorities meaningfully facilitate our attempts to retrieve the fuel needed to power aid operations and life-sustaining services. Yesterday, the Israeli authorities issued another displacement order in Khan Yunis and Deir al-Balah. This has affected hundreds of families living in 5 neighborhoods. 5 primary healthcare centers and 3 medical points are located within 1,000 meters of the displacement area. This week, our partners visiting the newly established displacement sites west of Gaza City to assess the urgent needs and priorities of displaced population there. Overall, in the past 3 months, our humanitarian partners estimate that more than 680,000 people have been displaced once again across the Gaza Strip. This includes almost 250,000 people forced to flee in just the last 30 days alone. Staying in the region, a quick update from our colleague Jean-Pierre Lacroix, the head of our Peace Operations Department. He is currently in Lebanon. Today he's holding a series of meetings with host authorities, including the President, Joseph Aoun, the Prime Minister, Nawaf Salam, the Foreign Minister, Youssef Raji, and the Speaker of the House, Nabi Berri. Discussions, as you may imagine, focus on the peacekeeping force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, and the implementation of Resolution 1701 and the ongoing situation. Yesterday, he met with the UNIFIL leadership in Naqoura, as well as with the peacekeepers on the ground and on the front lines, and those at sea to discuss their vital work in promoting security and stability in the region. Turning to another dire humanitarian situation, and that is in Sudan. And today I want to focus on children. As you may know, children account for half of the 30 million people in need of humanitarian assistance in Sudan, and half of the 12 million human beings displaced by the conflict since April 2023. Our humanitarian colleagues warn that Sudan's children are in urgent need of protection services, but due to severe funding shortfalls, less than 18% have received that critical support so far this year. Our partners working on child protection warn that their work is just 3% funded, with an estimated $88 million gap from what is needed. Children who are separated from families or unaccompanied or who are separated from families who are unaccompanied face heightened risks of abuse, exploitation, and trauma. Disease is also taking a heavy toll on children. Since cholera broke out in the country last July, the Federal Ministry of Health has reported more than 80,000 suspected of cases and over 2,000 deaths. This includes almost 7,300 cases and more than 200 deaths affecting children under 5 alone. On the cholera outbreak more broadly, just in the past month, approximately 15,000 suspected cases were recorded in Khartoum state, although recently we've seen a decline in new reports. However, partners warn that underreporting may be masking the true scale of the outbreak. Cases have been confirmed in South Darfur, River Nile, and other states. Partners working on health and water, sanitation, and hygiene continue to support the response, which is led by the Sudanese health authorities. And just a reminder that a 10-day oral cholera vaccination campaign supported by the World Health Organization and UNICEF was launched in Khartoum state on June 10th with the aim of reaching 2.6 million people aged 1 year and older. And as a reminder, this is being done in the midst of active conflict in a civil war. Sudan is also coping with a measles outbreak, and since the start of this year, more than 2,200 suspected cases, including 5 deaths, have been reported in the country, with more than 60% of cases impacting children under 5. Our partners working on health are responding, but as with the ongoing cholera response, their efforts are hampered by gaps in data on disease cases, as well as severe shortages of vaccines, supplies, and trained personnel. Once again, we call for unhindered humanitarian access so that we and our partners can scale up support for children and other civilians in desperate needs, as well as an immediate cessation of hostilities in Sudan and all other conflict-impacted regions. Turning to Burkina Faso, Tom Fletcher, our emergency relief coordinator, today allocated 5.9 million United States dollars, I should say, from the UN Central Emergency Response Fund to address the most urgent need of displaced people in the regions of Boucle du Mouhoun in center east and east areas of Burkina Faso. This new funding will enable ourselves and our partners in support of national efforts to scale up life-saving assistance, which includes food and nutrition support, shelter and healthcare services, as well as water, sanitation, and hygiene. So far this year, only 14% of the 793 million humanitarian appeal for Burkina Faso has been received. Humanitarians have had to prioritize 1.2 million of the most vulnerable people out of the 3.7 million they were targeting this year. An immediate mobilization of $280 million is required to meet the most critical needs. You'll have seen that yesterday afternoon we issued a statement in which the Secretary General lamented the passing of the former president of Nicaragua and first woman to be democratically elected as president in the Americas, and that was Violeta Barrios de Chamorro. Her presidency in Nicaragua is remembered for bringing an end to the civil war and initiating a period of peace and democratization in Nicaragua. The statement is online. Today is the International Day for Countering Hate Speech. In his message, the Secretary General says today hate speech travels faster and farther than ever, amplified by artificial intelligence. He calls on all of us to commit to using AI not as a tool of hate, but as a force for good, and stand united in pursuit of peace, mutual respect, and understanding for all. Finally, another international day. Did you know that by 2050, the world will have over 9 billion mouths to feed, yet 1/3 of all food produced is lost or wasted. So today we celebrate Sustainable Gastronomy Day. Very important day. It's a reminder that minimizing waste is something important to consider in the kitchen. More online, as our parents used to tell us, finish what's on your plate. Edie.
Thank you, Steph. You said that the Secretary General held informal consultations with G7 leaders and some of the other leaders who were in Canada. Can you tell us what message he came away with about the ongoing Israel-Iran war?
Well, I mean, listen, I think the Secretary General is very realistic. I think he's seeing what is happening. I think he's profoundly alarmed by the ongoing military escalation in the Middle East between Israel and Iran. His appeal is to do whatever we can do to avoid any further internationalization of the conflict. Any additional military interventions could have enormous consequences, obviously not only for those directly involved, but for the whole region and for international peace and security at large.
So does he support an immediate ceasefire?
I think the Secretary General is very clear. For him, all military attacks must stop now. He reiterates his call immediately to pursue de-escalation, leading to a ceasefire, avoiding at all costs the descent into a deeper conflict. For the Secretary General of the United Nations, diplomacy remains the best and only way to address concerns regarding Iran's nuclear program and regional stability in the region. I mean, for us, the framework remains the UN Charter. It remains international law. And that is our framework to save people from the scourge of war, as it's clearly written in the Charter. And he urges all member states to comply fully with the Charter and international law, including international humanitarian law. Deji, and then Ibtisam.
Will Secretary General give us a in-person stakeout about the situation?
We'll definitely pursue that.
Okay. You just mentioned about the Secretary General's position on this ongoing Israel and Iran war. How much does the Secretary General worry about the possible intervention by the U.S. to knock even deeper nuclear facility out in Iran?
I mean, I think what I just said to Edie is very clear, that he's very concerned, and his strong appeal is to avoid any further internationalization of this conflict.
And one more question. Does the Secretary General Secretary General also worried that the ongoing conflict between Iran and Israel would to distract our attention to the humanitarian situation in Gaza.
Look, I think we all have a responsibility in this moment we're living in this world, whether it's us as communicators or you as journalists, to keep our eyes on many, many different issues, right? And from this podium, we do our best to ensure that what is going on in Gaza is not forgotten, to what is going on in Sudan is not forgotten, or Myanmar and Haiti and Burkina. There's a lot of suffering, a lot of killing going on, and we have to make sure that no victims are forgotten. Ibtisam.
Thank you, Steph. Just first, a quick follow-up on your answer to Edie. Why isn't the Secretary General calling directly for ceasefire, full stop?
Well, I mean, I think he has, and that was my. That is, he wants to see an immediate stop to the military action. He wants to see a ceasefire. He wants to see a resumption of diplomacy, which for him clearly is the only way forward to deal with the underlying issues of this conflict. I mean, I spoke to him this morning, and it's clear to me that his heart breaks for all the victims we have seen, all the innocent civilians we have seen being killed in the last few days, whether it's in Iran or in Israel. This has to stop.
I have another question. The Palestinian Civil Society Organization Network, they issued a statement demanding the halt of the so-called U.S.-Israeli aid mechanism, and they say that one of the purposes of this mechanism is actually to make not only killing Palestinians but also force them to leave Gaza. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, I mean, I think, listen, since the GHF started working, I think we've been very clear in expressing our concern that this was a humanitarian operation that did not meet the standards, the humanitarian standards, the humanitarian principles. It's led to a lot of deaths. It's led to a lot of suffering. Yes, people have also received aid, and we're not saying that only the UN can deliver humanitarian aid. We saw that during the ceasefire. Many others were doing it. What we're asking for is for us to be permitted to do our work, and we're calling on others who are doing humanitarian work to do it in a way that is most beneficial to those who receive it, that doesn't put people at risk when they're just trying to eat, that doesn't put people at risk when they're just trying to get the bare minimum by which to survive. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Steph. Just to follow up on your answers to Edith and Deji about the Secretary General wish not to see the escalation between Israel and Iran not to be internationalized. As far as the UN is concerned, the issue is already defined already by the Security Council. So what's the Secretary General definition of internationalization, since it already...
The definition of internationalization is having more countries involved in the fighting. Sinan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You said Secretary General is concerned about Iran-Israel war. Since the situation is very fragile in Syria, does he think there will be an impact for the peace process in Syria?
Well, one thing is for sure is that any conflict has unintended consequences, right? And I think it's very clear in what he's been saying that the longer this conflict goes on, the more it intensifies, the more it internationalizes, the greater risk not only to Iran and to Israel, but to the broader region. And that obviously includes Syria.
quick follow-up. Since he's concerned, does he plan to, travel in the region, for example, like a shuttle diplomacy in the region?
I don't have anything to share with you at this point on that. Okay, any questions online? We'll go to Abdelhamid, then we'll go back to Edie.
Thank you, Stéphane. I was glad yesterday that for the first time, probably they mentioned numbers of Palestinian killed. And I'm asking today, there is 54 killed and 14 of them waiting for food. So you mentioned the word scores of Palestinian killed. And when are we going to get rid of that vague language about Palestinian killed? Scores or number of Palestinian killed, and mention the exact number. These are human beings, not numbers.
I think if with due respect, every time we talk about people being killed, every time I speak about people being killed, every time Fahan speaks about people being killed, we do it with the utmost respect for the people being killed, for the civilians. We try to keep everyone, we try to ensure that no one's story is forgotten. As for the numbers in Gaza, those are not United Nations numbers. Those are numbers we get from the Ministry of Health and other sources. Therefore, we can never be 100% sure of the exact number. We do know that the numbers in general are good, but these are not our numbers. And we have, I think, shown and will continue to show the utmost respect for the victims in this conflict and any other conflict. Edie.
Thanks, Steph. On the communications and internet issues in Gaza, what message is the UN receiving about why this isn't being fixed, can't be fixed quickly?
My understanding, and I'm sure my colleagues will correct me if I'm wrong, is that part of the problem is there's no fuel in the generators to power up a lot of these communications equipment. Okay, Fahan's bringing me something. Thank you. It is an official statement on the Iran situation, hopefully one that is close to the language I just used in answering your questions previously. Otherwise, Fahan will be here tomorrow and for the rest of the week. This is a statement from the Secretary General, and I'll read it to you in the first person. I remain profoundly alarmed by the ongoing military escalation in the Middle East between Israel and Iran. I reiterate my call for the immediate de-escalation leading to a ceasefire. I strongly appeal to all to avoid any further internationalization of the conflict. Any additional military interventions could have enormous consequences, not only for those involved, but for the whole region and for the international peace and security at large. I condemn this tragic and unnecessary loss of lives and injuries to civilians and damage to homes and critical civilian infrastructure. Diplomacy remains the best and only way to address concerns regarding Iran's nuclear programs and regional security issues. The UN Charter remains our shared framework to save people from the scourge of war. I urge all member states to comply fully with the Charter and international law, including international humanitarian law. We will share that with you. And on that note, goodbye. It's pretty close. It's pretty close, yeah. Thank you.